Welcome, everyone, to today's episode. My name is Marvin Fuentes, and I am the founder of Fountain. We help businesses operate smarter and scale with purpose. Today, I am joined by David Lee. David, would you like to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Absolutely. My name is David Lee. I'm the CEO of Renovation Center. It is a solar and roofing company based out of Arlington, Texas. However, we do operate. It was originally founded and opened up in California, so we do operate in California as well, but primarily Texas and California is our secondary market.
And can you walk me through the moment you decided to start your business and take the leap?
Well, I didn't start this business, but it's one of those things that I kind of was recruited into. My career is actually completely different. I'm not sure if you want to go through all of that, but I graduated college with the idea of going into public service. My whole family is full of entrepreneurs. Everybody owns their own business, but I was the black sheep in the family. I always felt like a desire to do some type of service to the community. So I went to school and got a degree in criminal justice. And right out of college, I went to the police department basically, dropped out of grad school early, went to the police department, worked there for 16 years, had an opportunity to do some really, really cool stuff, worked patrol, did undercover narcotics, worked 4 years undercover, all the meantime running a SWAT team as well as a team leader on a SWAT team for 10 of the years, 10 of the 14 years I was on a SWAT team. So got a lot of leadership development in there. Did a lot of cool things. Promoted to sergeant. Got to supervise my own crew. Got to supervise a crew of detectives as well as a sergeant, working again undercover. So really, really cool career path. And then once they decided that I was fit for admin, which I thought was a cool opportunity, but didn't really like it. I was more built for chasing bad guys and doing exciting stuff. So when they put me in admin, I realized I needed a career change. And at the time, I moved my family out to Texas and went into the business world. Actually got recruited to work as a sales manager for a technology company. Worked there for a couple of years and grew that side of the business, worked with engineering and robotics and software, which was really cool. Got to learn something completely different than I was used to in the past. And from that position, I was recruited to go over to a solar company, my first solar company, which was Circle Solar. Became a partner over there, moved my way from chief operating officer up to CEO over there, and then was heavily recruited to come over to ERC. And about 4 months ago, I made the jump over to ERC just because there was a little bit more opportunity over here. We have a different platform over here at Energy Renovation Center, ERC, which has some different loan options for our customers, some different programs that we have access to. So I came over here and it's been a blessing, man. It's been awesome.
Nice. And what does your day-to-day look like now?
Man, most of the time it's meetings. I oversee basically all divisions within the company. So I'm constantly checking on projects, our pipeline of projects, talking to our install crews. We also do roofing. So I'm talking to our roofers as well, and our guys that are out there basically project managing roofs. So my day to day is basically meetings after meetings, and then also trying to generate new business. So kind of in the mix of everything. My job is like I call it the 10,000 foot elevation level. So I'm basically monitoring what everything's going on inside the company and making sure things are rolling smooth. And if they're not rolling smooth, my job is to find a problem and fix that problem with a solution, right?
Yeah. And looking back, what was probably the most unexpected challenge you faced?
Man, it's completely different. Like I said, I was so used to, I spent 16 years as a cop, and it was a lot of what's the problem in front of you? How do you solve this problem now, right? So the view is different. The problems aren't urgent. I'm not dealing with life or death matters. So I do have some time to solve these problems. They're not super urgent situations. So it's been nice. It's a little bit of difference ever since I got into the technology sector about 7 years ago and then went into solar. It's the same field in my opinion, a lot of technology based interactions. So I get to actually spend time and evaluate what my responses are. When you're dealing with public service, if something happens, you're expected to respond immediately. Right. Somebody gets shot at, you have to figure out how to solve that problem right now, split second decision. Here, I have some time to think about it, which allows me to really come up with a better game plan. But yeah, that's the most unexpected thing for me, honestly, is just transitioning from high pace, make a decision now to, hey, slow down. You got some time. Nobody's dying. Make some decisions that are going to be, as beneficial as possible. I get it. You can't have all the facts to make a decision in anything in life, but having a little more time has been a different transition for me. And I'm still getting used to it, but I enjoy it. It's obviously much better to make decisions when you have a little more time to think about it.
Yeah. If you were to identify your single biggest bottleneck right now, what would it be?
Bottleneck. The biggest bottleneck is getting from the sales cycle from when the customer signs a contract all the way through the installation. There's quite a few checkoff points in what we do in the solar side of things, which is, making sure we submit permits with the city, the HOA, the utility to get all the project pieces approved before we can install. So that's probably our biggest bottleneck on the solar side of things. On the roofing side, it's pretty simple. We don't have too many bottlenecks over there. We deal with hail and storm damage. So when a hailstorm hits, our bottleneck is controlled by the insurance company. How long does it take for insurance to cover that roof before we can get started on the work? But I would say that's the biggest bottleneck. I think staffing and personnel globally is probably one of our biggest problems. There's a lot of transition in different companies right now. I know there's a lot of people that are going into AI, right? You get a lot of talent that's moving into different sectors. So the talent pool that I used to have to be able to pull from as far as resources and recruiting is changing, and it's ever changing, right? So I think always finding good people, finding good talent is always going to be a challenge, especially when you run a medium-sized company. So I think that's going to be a challenge in the future as well, especially with different industries continue to explode and develop. AI is on top of it. Data centers. I have a neighbor of mine who's building data centers. He's in charge of development for data centers. And the amount of data centers that are going up is astronomical. And then, how do we supply enough electricity and energy to these data centers? Especially when solar and wind energy is being, basically taken away because the tax credits are going away. So we're definitely behind in the race on utility and electricity to supply enough electricity for these data centers to keep up with the AI race against other countries. So those are the global problems that I'm worried about. Solar is a solution, so I feel like I'm in a good position where we can provide a solution. Yeah. However, it's not an all-encompassing solution. We can't solve all the problems.
Have you guys worked with a data center yet?
We have not. I know there's some data centers that are using a little bit of solar. It's just the magnitude of solar to provide to a data center is very, very big, right? So sometimes these data centers are getting built way before you can get the energy supply to it. They're just obviously tapping into the grid and they're pulling a huge demand from the grid, and then the solar comes after.
Interesting. Yeah, that's good. I mean, I'm trying to compute that in my head. How much it would need, I wouldn't know.
It's a lot. These data centers are going to be the biggest draw of electricity that you've ever seen. We have the government's doing a good job of investing in nuclear, right? Bringing nuclear back up. But, the permit process and the approval process for a nuclear power plant to start producing and providing enough electricity for these data centers, we're talking 5 to 10 years down the road if we're fast. So in the gap in between, how are we going to provide enough electricity to these data centers to keep up in the AI race? Because the AI race is developing so fast that it's literally on a daily basis, things are being developed. So it's interesting.
Just out of curiosity, what would probably a contract from a data center look like for you guys?
We're talking tens of millions of dollars. Yeah, for one single contract, as far as solar and at least some battery or some type of backup power, right? With these data centers, you're going to need some type of backup power, whether that be a generator or multiple generators to supply electricity to these data centers. Solar will provide it during the daytime, but obviously when the sun goes down or the sun sets, you're going to have to draw power from somewhere. So you'll need batteries to fill that void. It's a lot of batteries in order to fill that void. And then if there's a snowstorm in Texas, like we commonly have every so many years that shuts down the power, then what's your backup supply of power to keep these data centers running, right? So yeah, we're looking at tens of millions of dollars, if not sometimes maybe possibly hundreds of millions of dollars in commercial grade solar to power a data center.
How many people would that need, do you think?
To put together?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's going to be from start to finish, that'll probably be solar is one of the fastest ways to stand up electricity, right? We're way faster than any other source of electricity, way faster than generators, way faster than gas combustion engines, way faster than nuclear, right? We can literally stand up a project in under a year if we get the right approvals done correctly, right? Including the build itself. So solar is the fastest way, but it would probably take a team of, I would say probably, on a data center size, 50 to 60 people.
Currently?
My team, my current staff is about 45 right now. We have a pretty healthy sales force, and then we have some admin staff that help keep the machine running for our sales staff, and then we have our install side of things. So we're pretty healthy right now, 45 to 50 right now.
Besides labor, what is probably costing you the most amount of money?
I think you kind of answer that question, obviously, right? Labor, operating expenses, right? It's going to be obviously the highest salaries. And then cost of acquisition for solar. I mean, the solar industry is mixed. You have some people out there knocking on doors to talk to customers. And then the other side of things is just trying to find a way to generate a lead, right? Somebody that's actually interested in solar, that's out there looking for solar. How do you get in contact with that person? There'll be Facebook ads that are out there, Instagram ads, social media marketing to get a lead, right? And these marketing companies do charge quite a bit for these leads. And the conversion rate, depending on how good the conversion rate is how much you end up spending, per lead and what that converts over. So I think one of the biggest costs is the cost of acquisition for lead spend and converting it into an actual job sold. So that would be probably my second biggest cost outside
Hmm.
of, our staff and our payroll and our operating expenses. I
What is
know at one
probably
point in time,
Go ahead.
my last company, I was spending over $100,000 a month in just marketing.
Wow.
So
Yeah. What is probably costing you the most amount of time now?
time, it really is the permit process, but that's been
Mm.
expedited a little bit. It is literally, our project management team getting all the necessary information to submit for permits and making sure those permits and plans come back, reviewing those plans, making sure they're good to go before they submit them to the utility company and to the cities for approval. So that's probably where most of our resource time is going right now.
You mentioned it being expedited.
There's some new laws that changed here in the state of Texas, so you can go to a third party. Before it had to be reviewed by the city or a city official, basically the authority having jurisdiction, which is the AHJ for short. So a
Mhm.
city inspector or somebody assigned by the inspector had to review it. So they've changed the law now to where you can actually have a third party review it, and they're basically allowed to review it within 2 days if a city inspector can't review it. So it's streamlined our process a little bit. It's allowed us to go to third party to expedite that process because oftentimes, like I said, we end up waiting in the past for the city to review it. And if they're quick, they review it quick and we get it back in a few days. If they're slow, it could be as long as 3 weeks, 4 weeks before we get a review. So the bigger, more metropolitan areas, bigger cities, Dallas, for example, Austin, those used to typically take longer. So now I can outsource it to a third party. I can get a 2 day turnaround time, get that approved pretty quick.
Nice. What was the turnaround before?
Sometimes, especially during the pandemic, it was months.
Wow.
Yeah,
Also, way
so
different.
now we're down to 2 days, so it's completely different. And being on the business side of things, cash flow is extremely important, right? How do we
Hmm.
get enough cash flow to make sure that we cover operating expenses and still make profit for the company? So if we're not converting that cash flow as fast as possible, then the company's losing money because we're still covering payroll for staff and
Yeah.
operating expenses, right?
Yeah, that must have been a huge headache. Is
Yep.
is is there any part of the business that's overwhelming currently?
No, I would say, the changes. The solar industry is pretty dynamic. I don't think anybody expected the big beautiful bill to affect the solar industry the way it has. With the tax credit, it's always been, I wouldn't say it's heavily subsidized, but 30% of, the cost of your solar system, as a homeowner, you can get 30% back. So say you spent $30,000, make it easy math, you got $10,000 back just by going solar. And then when you price that out, your return on investment is pretty good because solar by itself, depending on how it's priced, which we price really well, the return on investment was always typically under 6 to 7 years. So for, a 25-year product, you had basically free electricity for 19 years, right? So you just paid for electricity up front with a loan, and then you on the 19 years at the tail end of it, you didn't pay anything to the utility company for that price per kilowatt that your solar produced.
Yeah.
So it was very, very good. Now it just goes up a little bit, right? The return on investment basically gets increased by 30% if you keep your price exactly the same. So now it's a 9 year return on investment rather than a 6 year return on investment. So that affects it a little bit, but all in all, solar is a great deal because nothing's getting cheaper, right? The cost of
Yeah.
utilities is going up. Doesn't matter what city or state you live in, it's going up. Data centers are going to increase that. The demand is going to be higher, and utility companies know that they can charge more, and you don't have a choice. It's like gasoline for a car, right? When's the
Yeah.
last time you decided to boycott gasoline prices?
Yeah.
Never. You can't not drive. You're gonna, if the gas prices are $2.50 today, guess what? You're paying $2.50. If they're $4.50 tomorrow, guess what? You may him and haw about it and complain to your friends and mf the gas station, but you're still paying it because you still have to travel. Right? Electricity is the same way. You cannot avoid paying electricity costs because you need to power your house, you need to power where you live, you need to power your studio, you need to power whatever you're doing to continue to work and have your day-to-day life. Right? So it's one of those things that's a constant. You're never gonna get away from it. And that's why, the solar industry intrigued me at first and still intrigues me today is because it's an opportunity for you to actually own your power. I always use an analogy when I talk to customers, when I talk to people is like, if you look at gas prices from 6 years ago,
Mhm.
right? I moved to Texas 7 years ago. When I moved out here, I moved from California. The gas prices in California were, I think, like $3 and something cents at the time. I moved out to Texas and they were like $1.20. And I was like, what the heck? I haven't paid $1.20 since high school. So I was at one point it got down to $1.06. And I said,
Wow.
man, if it ever breaks underneath $1, it is literally like the photographic moment. I'm going to post this picture and say, hey, I paid 99 cents. This is what I paid when I drove my first Honda Civic in high school, 1996, but it never happened, but it would have been awesome. But I always tell people, hey, if you can lock in your gas prices at that specific moment in time, even if it's right now, like I know in Texas right now, it's $2.56. If you can lock in your gas prices right now at $2.56 for 25 years, would you do it? Would you take a loan out to do that? And the common answer is absolutely, I would.
Mm,
So energy and solar is the same way. Like you can lock
yeah.
in your electricity prices at a certain price and it's forever at that price point. Well, I say forever loosely. It's 25 years of that price point, which is the guaranteed lifespan of solar. After that, they still produce, but they're going to be degraded to a certain extent.
Yeah. I'm glad you touched up on that because that was actually one of my questions is what framework do you use to have customers see the value of your service?
Yeah, I mean, it sells itself. I think the solar industry, you know, there's been some bad players in the industry that have
Hmm.
ruined the reputation of solar a little bit. But if you look at the product itself, look at the technology behind it, and look and really get a good company behind you that supports that system or
Hmm.
does your system for you, then you have a great product. It's great technology, and it is literally going to save you money. There's not too many things in life that are guaranteed to save you money. Solar is one of those things.
I know you mentioned some bad players. Can you give an example? Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
The solar industry has been plagued a little bit by the ability for salesmen to go. And I'll give you an example. HVAC, when it first came out, for example, there was a rush of salesmen that went to the HVAC industry and sold HVAC for an astronomical amount because people were like, "Man, air conditioning, this is great." They no longer had a swamp cooler. They actually had cold air coming out. Freon was blowing. People were cool. They're like, "I'm willing to pay whatever for that." So it became
Hmm.
the gold rush for salesmen to go and sell these HVAC units for whatever price they wanted. Let's just say the manufacturer charged 10,000 for this unit. These guys would mark it up $30,000, $40,000 just to sell it because they knew people would buy it.
Yeah.
Right. So it was to a certain extent taking advantage of people. That happened in the solar industry as well. So a lot of sales organizations, a lot of sales reps went out there and took advantage of this market and sold these solar packages for an extremely high price, made a lot of commission off of it, but didn't necessarily take care of the homeowner, right? Because the return on investment now is increased so much that the homeowner is really not saving as much as they possibly could have. Our goal always is to make sure that our homeowners are getting a good return on investment, the
Yeah.
best possible return on investment, so that it's a no-brainer. I have solar in my house. My neighbors pay, somewhere around the ballpark of $600 a month in the summertime for their bills. I pay zero. I pay a connection fee. I literally pay $17 a month for my solar, and I have solar and batteries. Well, the solar is prepaid, but for my utility company, just to connect to the grid, just to make sure I have a backup. So it's a huge difference. I mean, I paid for mine obviously outright, but it's just an investment for me. So for the next, when I pass this house on, or if my kids take over this house, or I sell it, the next person that lives in this house has got free electricity essentially, right? So it's a great investment.
Yeah. Sounds efficient.
For sure. For sure. And it's low maintenance. There's nothing to it. Like you don't have to do anything. There's no machines, no moving parts. Everything just runs by itself. There's some computer chips in there, right? Printed circuit boards, but there is nothing else in there. It is a extremely low maintenance product, and that's the best part about it. You have windmills out there, and those have gears and stuff that you have to put oil in. This literally has no machine parts in it. It's literally just printed circuit boards connected together, and when the sun comes up, it makes enough power to turn the machine on, and that's all is needed. So it's pretty cool.
Is there any process in the business that feels outdated or inefficient?
Yeah, I think we're adopting AI for us is going to be a little bit of a challenge, right? I think, that's where it feels a little inefficient, especially when I'm looking at other sectors that are using AI and how that can be integrated. So if we can integrate AI to communicate with our customers better, to filter out, stuff up front so we're not spending so much human power to do it, that obviously is an opportunity, and that feels like that's an area that's maybe inundated or a little bit older. But again, we're not too far behind because people are still adapting to AI. And you being an AI specialist, this is like it just takes time to figure out how to um, use that
Implement.
technology, yeah,
Yeah.
and implement it into your daily processes, right? So I'm all for it. I think the future thinking companies are the ones that are going to use AI as much as possible to help them streamline the process, right? I know a lot of call centers are using AI to dial people and have conversations with people.
Yeah.
That's a traditionally a human person that does that. So you have AI being integrated already into, what I do by calling people and setting up appointments for me. So there's going to be more and more of that. I'm a firm believer in the most successful companies are the ones that basically can interact with, artificial intelligence the best, with machine learning the best, with utilizing those things and speaking well to a language model, right? is going to make you more successful.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, a lot of people want to implement it, they just don't know how. Because it can go in
Yeah.
any which way direction. And it's very like when people talk about AI, it's very vague.
Yeah.
It's very vague because it can go in all directions.
I think there's so much still to learn from that, right?
Yeah.
And I think, it's amazing the developments, and I try to track this stuff as much as possible. I'm, not super into it, but just seeing the growth of it, the ability for Grok, for example, to write code to make a video game by itself just with a couple of prompts. I mean, that's incredible. That's
Yeah.
stuff that would take years, in the past, right? And it's funny because I've always kind of tracked technology, and I think that's why when I got away from law enforcement, I kind of fell into this niche pretty fast because I was a guy that always like when I was still doing police work, I was like, man, we got drones now. Like now I can not call for a helicopter. I can fly my own little mini helicopter at
Hmm.
a crime scene. That's awesome. So I was always a technology guy. I was a guy using robots on SWAT call outs before everyone else was. I was driving a little, homemade and then actually commercially produced little robot tanks into the house before our guys went in just to get at least a view of the house and see if the suspect's inside of it. So, man, I'm all for it. Technology is going to be a huge thing for us in general as a species, but also in the business world, right? I think again, the ones that learn how to scale with it are the ones going to be extremely successful.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree with you. Yeah, technology is very, I mean, we're different ages. And I was kind of like born in still like the technology stage, where it was still all in front of me. But even then, I'm still amazed. Every day it's changing, every week. Even just the AI in the past 2 months has been insane. The
Well,
amount of
it's
new
even better
things.
because like 2 months for you is a bigger chunk of your life than it is for me, right?
Yes. Yes, a
So
great
it
point.
almost seems like even more like
Yeah.
crazy to you. For
Yeah.
me, like I'm 46 years old, so when I see a 2 month section of my life, it's not as drastic as you. Like 1 year of your life is, I have a daughter who's 20, and 1 year of her life is like, oh my God, that's such a long time. For me, it's just a little snippet, right? So it's interesting. So yeah, to your point, it's advancing so fast. It's crazy. I love to see it. I just hope the machines don't take over and
Yeah.
become God one day, you know?
Dude, absolutely. How do you currently find customers and keep customers? I know it's different for you in sense of keeping customers because,
I'm
but
a big man. It's funny because you asked that question. I literally have the same speech that I've been, doing for forever, and I'll share it with you. I mean, when I was a cop and I became a sergeant, and I used to get asked by, not only my SWAT team that I was in charge of, but also my patrol guys. Said, hey, they would ask questions, and they were just questions. Hey, what do you do in this scenario? And it didn't matter what the question was. I always had the same answer. I was like, look at if you ever have a question, and especially when you're dealing with a customer in law enforcement, it was a citizen or a civilian. Pretend that civilian is somebody you care about, your mom, your grandma, your dad, somebody that you love and care about. And then what would the expectations be and the level of service you would expect if that was your loved one? And for example, in police work, I said, hey, if it's your grandma that had her car broken into, I get it, you're a cop. You're going to go to a shooting call 1 minute, and then you're dealing with grandma who left her car unlocked and she had some change stolen from her center console. To her, that's the most dramatic thing, traumatizing thing that's happened to her. One of the most traumatizing things that happened to her maybe in the last few months, if not her whole life, right? So having the empathy and understanding that, hey, look, if that was my grandma, I gotta sit here and treat her like she's my grandma, right? Like, I'm so sorry this happened to you. Put on that, the empathetic face and do that, right? So I've transferred that over to the business world as well. And I tell, my install crews, I tell my sales staff, I said, hey, if it doesn't feel right, like you feel like you're taking advantage of somebody, that's wrong, number one. But if you treat everybody like they're a loved member of your family, the rest will guide itself out. It's that easy. You'll know what the answer is. It doesn't matter what scenario you're in. It's easy to just you understand that the answer is always to do the right thing. You just have to treat that person like they're your family member. And that's always worked out for me. It's worked out my business relationships when I was with a software company. I treated everybody like they were personal, family members of mine, wanted to get them the best price and the best opportunity possible within reason to make company, money for the company as well. It's the same thing here with this company in the solar industry. If I treat everybody, with the respect and, empathy that I would expect if they're a family member, guess what? They're going to refer me more business. I'm going to have better reviews. They're going to have a better overall experience. And then successful businesses aren't in it for the short haul. They're in it to basically build that consumer confidence, build that reputation, build that long-standing referral network, that continues to feed them for years to come.
That was some great piece of advice. I'll definitely take that and run with it. Yeah, I think that's one of those things where it's perception versus perspective things. Yeah, and that's a great framework. Yeah, that's good.
Yep, and that's the model. That's the model we live by around here, man. We just treat everybody, with empathy and respect, and put them in put yourself in their shoes, and how would you expect to be treated, and the rest will guide itself.
Yeah, yeah, I'm a firm believer in that. Uh, just a quick side story. A lot of my competitors were in my last business, were very grimy, cut around corners and all that. Even though we were slower than them, I felt like it was just going to come back later on in dividends, just doing good.
Yep.
And yeah, I think that's definitely how it played out.
Yeah, no, spending a few extra minutes, right, talking to somebody, explaining the process to
Hmm.
somebody, following up with them, right? Those things pay dividends. I meet with my customers all the time, and even if they're not my deal, my sales guys will sell stuff. I'll show up to an install. We may have 50 installs this month. I'm going to show up to as many as I can, and I'll talk to the customer. Hey, how's your experience? How's your sales rep? How's the install crew? Did they make a mess? And then when all those boxes are checked, and they say, hey, no, it was great. Everything was great from start to finish. Oh, I love hearing that, number one. But number two, I'll say, hey, do you mind writing a review for us right now? I would love to see you put, those exact thoughts down on a Google review for me, because that's the biggest compliment. That's the biggest compliment you give
Yeah.
me as a part of this company, as a company owner, is to see that review. And then secondly, the best thing you could do for me is refer me to somebody. If you hear of a friend or family member that wants solar or needs a new roof or needs a roof inspected, think of me. And I appreciate you for doing that. And then I would often, very, very often, get people to review right on the spot. And that stuff, we're in a day and age where everybody looks at reviews,
Yeah.
right? And looks at, the positive nature of interactions to see if they should use you or not, right? Or if they should go with you. So it's definitely brand building. It's definitely rapport building. It's definitely future business building.
With that being said, how do you guys incorporate feedback?
I will, like I said, I'll spot check. I'll come out and talk to customers. I'll call customers. I'll go out to job sites, deal with customers, right? But I encourage all my guys to give reviews. I incentivize them for it, and to the extent of, hey, the person with the most reviews for the month gets an extra bonus. Like we do often do like an Xbox for the month. My install guys, I'll give them a tool bag like worth $1,500 worth of Milwaukee tools.
Nice.
So it's just stuff like that to continue to drive the guys to continue to do well, because it only benefits them to do a good job. And then it benefits us when they get the review. And then we get to see firsthand, in a live review, that the customer's happy. So it's a small investment for me to make sure that we continue to grow our company.
Amazing. Yeah. If you could improve one part of your business, sorry, let me start this over. If you had a magic wand that could improve one part of your business, what would it be?
Uncapped revenue. Business owners, we're always worried about, hey, what the sales cycle looks like, and worrying about, revenue streams, right? So obviously, if I had a magic wand, I would make sure that, I'm not greedy. I would just ask for a certain amount to come through every month, and the rest I would take care of. It's consistency, asking for a consistent, consumer base. We build that through, again, referrals and doing the right thing. But I would say that's probably the best way to describe it is, being a business owner, you're always worried about the sales cycle, or you're always worried about, hey, is this month going to be as good as last month, or is next month going to be better? So the inconsistencies of business ownership is one of those things I would try to do away with if I had a magic wand, for sure.
Have you ever felt like the business was plateauing?
Yeah, a lot. I mean, like I said, this is my second go around with the second solar company in the last 5-ish years. And we do get to points where we peak, and then we go, okay, well, what's preventing us from growing, right? Some of that stuff is variables we can't control, outside things, changes in tariffs, for example, right? We had a couple of different bouts with tariffs in the last year. It impacted our pricing. It impacted the pricing that we had to pass on to our customers. So our sales went down. So those are things that, have kind of stunted, our growth at times. But overall, I think, being a good businessman and owning a good business, you'll find ways to adapt. And you'll find ways to adapt and make it make sense if you can, and then just find ways to continue to grow the company. So there's opportunities out there. Just got to keep looking for them. Sometimes they fall in your lap, and sometimes you have to look really hard for them. So
There probably any opportunities that you think you wish you could take advantage of?
opportunities that I wish I could take advantage of, right?
Yeah,
Or
and yeah, in
past.
the industry.
In the industry, obviously, like the data center thing, we just talked about it, right?
Yeah.
Like that's going to be a huge opportunity to deploy some solar, and it's always back and forth to me. I mean, commercial solars, I'm more a residential solar person, so commercial solar to me, probably because I'm not as good at it, seems to occupy more resources for longer periods of time. So it's a little bit more of a heavy management process for me, but I think that's definitely worthwhile because there is no way that we can keep up with the utility demand without solar bridging that gap. So I think there's an opportunity there that I need to take advantage of, and I need to drive forward and find a way to
Yeah.
take advantage of that opportunity.
So if you had unlimited resources, is that one thing, first major change you would probably make?
Yeah, I would. I would assign somebody with more commercial experience than I. I have some of the connections already to because like I said, I have a neighbor who's building data centers now to pursue those contracts and pursue, a solution for that. But it is a heavy lift up front. So if I had unlimited resources, I think that would be where I would invest some of those resources for sure.
What's probably the biggest risk you think the business faces in the next 2 to 3 years?
The biggest risk, tax incentive going away. A lot of, solar components, as with many components, the technology sector are manufactured in China. So with FIOC, foreign entities of concern, legislation in place, right? Things have to
Mhm.
shift and go a different direction. So not just our industry, but many industries are impacted by that. I think that's going to impact our industry for a few years for sure. The banks are, interest rates, they directly affect our business. We're subsidized or not subsidized. I would say we're heavy in the loan industry, as in like most people, this is probably their second or third biggest investment if they go solar, right? It's not a cheap investment. It's now, I would say it's cheaper than cars now because cars are so dang expensive. But, it's their third biggest investment, right? It's a long-standing investment, but talking to people and making sure they understand what the ROI is. But yeah, those are the hurdles that I see in the short term, next couple of years. But I think solar is going to be around for a while. I don't think there's any way for us to basically subsidize some of this utility usage or this need for electricity without solar and without wind. So I think there's going to be, a huge push for the renewable energy sector for
Hmm.
the next few years at least, if not longer. Until that gap can be bridged with something else, some alternative power source, whether it be nuclear or something else technology wise comes out. Who knows? In 5 years, AI can be, general artificial intelligence can figure out a better solution for us than we can, right? Because it's now navigating and understanding and knows how to produce electricity better than us. So a lot of unknowns out there, but I know for a fact in the next few years, solar is going to help subsidize some of that usage or to help, bridge that gap. And we've already done it for the last couple of years. We haven't had some huge power outages because there's so many batteries connected to the grid now that are supplying homes with power. So there's gonna be a lot to do in the next few years, and that's my plan is to be here in this sector for the next few years to make sure that we provide not only a great product but also an ability to stabilize that grid so our general population here in Texas and California doesn't really suffer from the high demand, right?
A lot of the data centers are located in Texas.
Yep.
That's true, right?
Yep, there's a lot of land out here. There's a
Yeah.
lot of land out here to develop, and there's a lot of land. Texas is pretty business friendly as well too, so it entices a lot of businesses to build out here. So it's definitely a hot market
Yeah.
for data centers and big giant industrial warehouse space for sure.
Yeah, I know the biggest data center is going to be built there. I know that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, Austin's a hot market for it, and obviously a lot of technology companies are out here as well, right? Tesla's got their Gigafactory out here, which is massive. So
David, two last questions for you. I don't want to take up too much of your time.
no worries.
What is the goal with the business in the next 6 to 12 months?
My goal is to grow this business and to continue to grow this business, but based on quality. I want to grow it with quality and the customer experience in mind. Look, I'm not the guy that wants to drive, or have a garage full of exotic cars. I want to make a decent living, but also providing a service that I can feel good about. I joke around about it, but in law enforcement, most people retire at 50, and I still have that goal in mind is to retire at 50. And then when I retire and when I'm in my later years, when I'm in my 60s and 70s, I just want a modest house, but with a great view. I don't want to look out either on, a pasture or a lake or an ocean. And I want to have like, a rocking chair with grandchildren around me. And I want to
Mhm.
tell them stories about how many cool things I did when I was younger. I got an opportunity to work undercover, I got an opportunity to do, police work. I was on a SWAT team. I was a sniper, all this stuff that I can say that was cool. And then I
Mhm.
ran two solar companies. I did, sold robots and, that's the type of stuff that I want to talk about. That's the wealth that I want. Not necessarily monetary wealth. I want a wealth of experience that I can pass on to my kids and my grandchildren and talk about that. So the next 6 to 12 months is gearing up and building that for the long-term future, right? So I would love to pass this company on, the torch on to somebody else, have them run it. They can bring fresh ideas to the table. And then I just sit back and get to watch it grow and say, hey, I started part of that. I was involved in that process. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man, absolutely. I mean, you also have an amazing story so far, and I'm excited to see what's next.
No, I'm excited about the growth. I'm excited about the opportunities. I've been blessed with so many different chances and opportunities and experiences in life. I want to continue to take advantage of that. When I retire at 50, hopefully, I want to experience some different experiences, right? Not work related. I want to go travel. I want to do things with my family and my kids, my wife, watch them grow, watch my kids grow, watch my grandchildren develop, watch the AI race develop, watch, my Tesla robot bring me, my TV dinner when I'm sitting there watching a football game. Those are things I'm excited about, man. Like I'm truly excited about the future of technology, the future of technology integration in my life. So I'm super excited about the future, really optimistic about the future, and I think it's gonna be wild. Like it literally is gonna be the Jetsons, but better. You know, I don't know if you might be too young for the Jetsons, so
Heard of it, but I don't know what it is.
look it
Yeah.
up. Look it up after this call and look at the Jetsons cartoon, just the highlights of it, and you'll see it. I mean, they had robot maids, stuff that's already come to fruition, right? Flying cars, the ability to talk to each other on the phone, but have a visual image, like stuff that, people
Yeah.
thought wasn't even possible 20, 25 years ago is half of it's already here. So it's pretty cool.
Amazing, man. All right,
Yeah.
one last question for you, David. What
Yes,
is
sir.
your personal goal in the next year?
I mean, I kind of touched on it a little bit, my personal goal for long term, but for the next year, I'm going to put my head down. I'm going to continue to grind, man. I just want to see this company grow. I want to build future leaders in my company, right? I want to invest in the people here so that they can be leaders in the future, and be successful and make the best of themselves. My goal is always to see people succeed, and people that I touch hopefully are better off than before they met me, right? I want to leave my marking, lasting impression on everybody I come across in life. So my next, year is to put my head down and grind, build this company up even further than it is now, right? Hopefully I have 100 employees in a year. And we're out there rocking and rolling. I don't need to be the biggest company. I just want to be, a medium-sized company with a lot of happy people running around, man, doing what they do best.
Amazing, David. I appreciate you jumping on this. How can people connect with you?
I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on social media networks as well. I'm on Facebook and I'm on Instagram. I'll send you those if you want to tag them in the video so you can get a hold of me. But yeah, man, I it's funny because in this industry and in many industries, people are so adversarial and they compete against each other. I'm all for friendly competition, but I'm also people's biggest cheerleader. I love to see other people in my industry succeed. I love to see people succeed in general. I feed off of that. So I'm all for people winning and wanting to see people win. And there's enough winning for everybody to have some.
Absolutely. David, thank you so much for jumping on this. David Lee, everyone.
Absolutely, Marvin. It's been a pleasure. Nice talking to you.